Hello. So I was looking at people speedrunning all advancements in Minecraft, and when I saw that I thought, hey, what if instead of getting every advancement, we try to avoid them as much as possible? So let's do it. First, let's set the rules for this challenge. Firstly, it will be played on the current latest version of Minecraft, which to this day is 1.19.4. Secondly, it has to be done on a random seed. And thirdly, anything in the advancements tab counts as an advancement, even the ones that don't show in chat. For example, having a crafting table in your inventory grants you the Minecraft advancement, which doesn't write anything in the chat but still shows in the advancements tab, so it counts as an advancement for this challenge. Alright, now that the rules are set, let's get going. So the first thing we need to do is find a crafting table, since we're not allowed to have one in our inventory. We can sometimes find them in villages, and we can always find one in witch huts and igloos, so we start looking for those. After a few minutes we find a first village. Unfortunately it's a plains village, so there's no crafting tables in here, but we can still grab a few beds that we will need for later. We go back to walking around, and talking about walking, there's a bit of an issue with this. You might be wondering why I'm walking instead of sprinting. And to explain this, let's talk a bit more about the hidden advancements. Each category has a hidden starting advancement, also called root advancement. For the Minecraft tab, you get it by having a crafting table in your inventory. For the Adventure tab, you get it by killing any entity or being killed by any entity. And for the Husbandry tab, you get it by consuming anything that can be consumed. This includes eating food. Yep. That means we'll have to beat the entire game without ever eating food. Let me add this to the list of things I can't do real quick. Thankfully, walking does not consume any food points, so I can walk around as long as I want without my food bar ever going down. Just before the night falls, we find another plains village, where we can spend 10 minutes waiting the night away while looking at the bed we can't sleep in because it would give us an advancement. After the night has passed, we grab a few more beds and we go back to searching for a crafting table. On the way we find pumpkins, which we will need for later, and we also find a broken nether portal, which gives us some gold armor and a bunch of other stuff. After a few more nights in empty villages, we find another broken portal with a flint and steel and a ton of iron nuggets. And we finally find an igloo. Now that we have a crafting table, we can finally start playing the game. We craft some tools and we go gather a few materials. And by a few materials, I mean mostly dirt and wood, because that's basically all we can get, since having cobblestone in our inventory would grant us an advancement, and we don't want that. We then refill our food bar by drinking water, and we need a few more iron nuggets, so it's time to search for a broken portal or for a shipwreck. And now that we can craft boats, adventuring will be a lot easier, because we can travel on water, slide on ice, and we can also use a boat to sprint. Wait, what? Well, normally hitting an entity stops your sprint and puts you back to a walking state. However, if you hold the sprint button, you're almost instantly going to sprint again. But at this point, the game still thinks you're walking. So you only have the extra speed of the sprint without the extra knockback and food consumption. So by placing down a boat, sprinting and hitting it, we can effectively sprint without consuming any food points, which is quite convenient. Anyway, after some boat sprinting, we find the broken portal we were looking for and we get the iron nuggets we needed. But by the way, why do we need iron nuggets? In order to make the nether portal, we're going to need a bucket. However, having an iron ingot in our inventory would give us the acquire hardware advancement, which would be problematic. And that's where the iron nuggets come into play. When we use the iron nuggets to craft iron ingots and immediately craft something with them, the iron ingots never land in our inventory, they stay in the crafting table, so we don't get the advancement. We also craft a pair of shears, which we then use to peacefully cut our pumpkins. And now we're ready to make the nether portal. First, we're going to need lava, so we completely fill our inventory with random items so we can't grab any cobblestone, and we start digging down. We even find some diamonds on the way. Nice. And after a bit more digging, we find the lava we need. But wait, we have an issue here. Usually, when we make a nether portal, we have two possibilities. Either we grab obsidian and place it down to make a portal, or we use lava buckets to forge a portal in water. However, obtaining obsidian gives an advancement, and obtaining lava also grants an advancement. So how can we make a nether portal without obsidian and without lava buckets? Well, if we can't forge a portal in water, we'll forge a portal directly in the lava. For this, we will need a 5 blocks deep lava lake, which is more common to find near bedrock level. So we get to bedrock level and find some new lava. Then we carefully place dirt and sand to forge the shape of the nether portal in the lava, and now we simply use water to create the obsidian blocks. And with a final right click, the nether portal is ready. So far we've managed to do all of this without getting a single advancement. Let's hope this continues. Unfortunately, this one isn't really avoidable, and entering the nether actually gives 2 advancements, one in the Minecraft tab and one in the nether tab. So that's our first 2 advancements. Anyway, the magic of the pie chart tells us that there's a fortress nearby, which makes things a lot easier. However, before going to the fortress, I realized I was missing a few things, so we'll have to go back to the overworld. In order to kill the blazes, we will need 2 things: clay and eggs. Trust me, okay, it's gonna make sense later on. So we dig some clay, put it in the furnace, find some chickens, and we make a top quality free range egg farm with very happy chickens living a very happy chicken life. And we wait. Alright, now we have the eggs, so we're ready to go back to the nether. We grab the bricks in the furnace and we make some slabs. We go back to the portal and we start looking for the fortress. On our way to the fortress, we find 2 endermans, so we lock them in a boat and watch them slowly suffocate to their death, and one of them seemingly starts to get possessed by Satan. What the... And after a bit more wandering around, we find the fortress. But wait a second. Entering the fortress gives an advancement, so how do we get to the blazes? Well, if we can't get to the blazes, we'll have to get the blazes to us. The game only counts us as being in the fortress when we are in the main areas of the fortress, like on this bridge for example. So if we dig inside this pillar and stay low enough to not enter the height of the bridge, we don't get the advancement. This way we can dig under the blaze spawner and let them fall to us without really entering the fortress. Alright, the fortress issue is solved, but now we have a new, much bigger issue. We need to kill those blazes, but if we just killed them, we would get the monster hunter advancement, and we don't want that. So you could be thinking, why don't you make them suffocate like you did with the Enderman? Well, unfortunately that wouldn't work. For some reason, in order for a blaze to loot a blaze rod, it needs to be killed by a player or by a tamed wolf. If you kill it with gravel, for example, it won't loot anything. And unfortunately, taming a wolf also gives an advancement, so we can't do that either. So to recap, we need to somehow kill a blaze without killing a blaze, but we have to participate in the kill, but we can't deal damage to the blaze without getting the advancement, and we can't kill him either. How the hell are we gonna do this? Well, remember when I say this? We will need 2 things, clay and eggs. Yup, it's egg time. First, we get the blaze to 1 HP, and then we wait around 15 seconds for the game to forget we've hit the blaze. Okay, now we have a blaze at 1 HP, but how do we kill him without hitting him? Simple, we build a snowman. Snowmen melt very fast in the nether, but they still have enough time to shoot one snowball, and since blazes take damage from snowballs, the snowman can kill them. However, if we just did that, the blaze wouldn't loot anything because there's no player participation in the kill, and that's where it's finally time to use those eggs. By hitting a blaze with an egg, we add ourselves to the list of kill participations, but since eggs don't deal any damage, the snowman dealt 100% of the damage to the blaze, so the game counts this as a snowman kill, and we both get the blaze rod without getting the advancement. Oh, and gathering a blaze rod gives an advancement. Not much we can do about that. Also, there's one little downside to using eggs. They sometimes spawn baby chickens, and if we accidentally killed one, it would give us the adventuring advancement. So whenever a baby chicken spawns, we'll have to gently get it out of the way in a very peaceful manner. Alright, we got the blaze rods we needed, so we can go back to the overworld. We go back to the igloo, and now that we have blaze rods, we need to farm the item that goes with it, ender pearls. Since we can't trade with villagers or with piglins, as that would give advancements, we'll have to farm ender pearls the old school way, Enderman. Originally, I thought about farming them in the warped forest biome in the nether, but I was scared of accidentally getting the hot tourist advancement, so instead I opted for the even more old school method, the tower. Let's build it. First, we need to find an area with a clear view, so I chose to build it in these plains. Then we build a small house with open windows, we dig a hole in front of the entrance with a fast respawn pit next to it, put slabs on the roof to prevent mobs from spawning, and now we make a 140 blocks high tower with a little bed on top. So, how does this work? We fall from the tower into the little house, look around to see if there's any enderman, and if there's not, we fall in the respawn pit, respawn on top of the tower, and since we're more than 120 blocks away from the surface, all of the hostile mobs despawn, so when we fall back down, new enemies will spawn, with a chance for an enderman. So we can just keep respawning until we see an enderman, and when we see one, we place down a boat, look at his eyes to lure him in, he gets stuck in the boat, we dig under it to make him fall into the little room under the entrance, and we use sand to suffocate him. Perfect! So far, everything goes perfectly according to plan. Alright, we need to improve the farm. We need to craft a few things, so we do a quick travel back to the igloo, craft what we need, go back to the tower, wait for the night to pass. And now let's make this farm creeper proof. Alright, now we can go back to farming endermen without the fear of a creeper breaking everything. And we can even capture multiple endermen at once. We're gonna get those ender pearls in no time. Yay, we got the last ender pearl. Okay, now that we have the ender pearls, it's time to look for the stronghold. So we're going to triangulate its location. To do this, it's pretty simple. I throw an eye, note the angle, move around 20 blocks, throw another eye, and watch a tutorial on YouTube because I forgot how to do it. On the way to the stronghold we find a shipwreck, which I thought would be useless, but then I remembered that I forgot to craft slabs, so I steal a few slabs from the shipwreck. And the next Eye of Ender goes straight into the ground, so we make sure our inventory is full and we start digging down. But wait, entering the stronghold gives an advancement, so we would like to avoid that. But if we can't enter the stronghold, how can we get to the end? Well, similarly to the fortress, the game only counts us as being in the stronghold when we're in the main areas, so if we never enter the walls of the stronghold, we don't get the advancement. So we dig this way until we find the portal room. Now we need to place down the eyes. If we hug the walls of the stronghold, we have just enough range to place the eyes in the portals without entering the stronghold. So we just have to mine around the room and... I almost grabbed a cobblestone. We keep mining around the room to place down the remaining pearls, and we have two problems. First, we can't quite reach the portal in the middle, and second, Lighting up the portal is cool and stuff, but we need to enter it, right? And it's inside the stronghold, right? Thankfully there's a way around this. The game doesn't instantly give you the advancement as soon as you enter the stronghold. It only gives it after you've been in the stronghold for about a second. So if we drop from above the stronghold with enough momentum and light up the portal while we're falling, we should be able to enter the end before the game gives us the advancement for entering the stronghold. So we dig a hole above the portal, clean our inventory by taking only the items we need, and it's time for the scary jump. Let's go! As planned, we managed to enter the end portal without getting the I Spy advancement. We did get the advancement for entering the end though, but there's nothing we can do against that. Now it's time for the dragon fight, but before fighting him we have a small issue. Killing the dragon gives an advancement. Actually, it would even give 3 advancements. But thankfully we can avoid all of that with just one item: beds. Bed explosions are counted by the game as environmental damage, so by killing the dragon with beds, we don't get ownership of the kill, so we don't get any of those advancements. Alright, it's time for the final fight then, so let's resume the video. After digging out of the cage with our almost broken pickaxe, we run to the portal to set it up, and we quickly go back to the pillar to build a big tower. There's 2 reasons for building a tower. Firstly, by being high enough in the sky, we can avoid every attack from the dragon, and we have a clear view of the area. And secondly, since we're positioned perfectly in line with the portal, the dragon will perch horizontally, which makes the fight easier. Now we just need to wait for the dragon to perch. The way we can tell when the dragon is perching is when he snaps straight towards the portal. Then we just throw the pearl and start placing beds. If you're curious, the way to deal the most damage to the dragon is to explode the bed when the dragon's head gets near the pillow of the bed. The closest its head is to the pillow, the more damage he will take. And just like that, it's done. So let's recap. In total, beating Minecraft took 5 advancements, with 2 of them being root advancements. 2 advancements for entering the Nether, 2 advancements for entering the End, and 1 advancement for gathering a blaze rod. So yeah, 5 advancements in total. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment, subscribe, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Bye bye!